Alright, hello, my name is Datu Arellano. I'm a sound artist, but I guess it's probably more accurate to call myself a media artist because I work not exclusively in sound, but I work in also in the moving image, aside from electronics and but I do work with so I feel that while sound takes a huge part of my work, I integrate it with other media as well. I have no training in the arts, as I was talking in the beginning of one of the clips that Joee was showing. My training was exclusively in the sciences. I went to Philippine Science High School. I studied biology first in UP and then in the University of Hiroshima. And then but I found out that I didn't want to study the names of caterpillar bumps in Japanese. So because you have to learn, you have to learn taxonomy and in Japanese, and I just couldn't hack it. And that's also what I found out that biology, my chosen field, was statistical in nature. Like in order to get any results, you have to perform the same experiments thousands of times, and I just did not have the patience to do stuff like that. So I left, and then to make my parents happy, I finished a degree of philosophy at the University of the Philippines. So no artistic background, but plenty of philosophy but more science. And I suppose I got into filmmaking by running by accident into a filmmaking workshop in Molfan. And so that's what I like about filmmaking is that it requires right brain activity as well as left brain activity. I mean, you have your feeling about mood and whatever the shot. I think that this guy should be bigger in the frame, and the camera should tilt up to make it more threatening. But you also have a lot of left brain stuff where the gamma of this film is too high. And you have to use a grade card so that 18% of the light will reflect back into the film and blah blah blah. So stuff like that. So I felt that I was firing in all 4 cylinders, all 8 cylinders. So it's like when I was in Hiroshima, I always felt a bit weird. I was a science student, but some internal compulsion forced me to dress like a goth. So obviously some part of me was saying, I'm not just a science kid, So there was some kind of artistic trauma waiting to get out. So anyway, so film just used both parts of my brain. And but then I discovered that I preferred using the tools of film, like cameras and tape recorders and computers. Yeah. So anyway, so that's my background. I'm an artist, but primarily I work with technology, specifically electronics. Although I do have a background in biology, so I can actually go into bio, which I've started, but that's wet and messy. So anyway, but I want to talk a little bit about communal making and its parallels with community. And this is a bit of a non-linear talk. I want to talk a little bit about my experience making stuff communally with this trio I have called Somatosonic. And then to talk a little bit about maybe what it might have in parallel with the concept of community. And then I thought I would also take this opportunity to talk in public about certain speculations I have. I have certain thoughts that I had as a result of working within the community of Wasak, and its recent demise, I guess. So, I've been in bands ever since I came back from Japan, so that would have been something like, I would have been 22 or something like that. This is the first band that I have with the Children of Catholic Grace, so we're a noise band, kind of a pioneering noise band, I guess. So Marco is always telling me that I'm the godfather of this and that movement. I guess it's close since I started doing this stuff in in like 89. So that would be like near on half of closing up on like closing in on like a fourth of a century already. So yeah, sure, I'll take that. So this was like the members, we were like a 5-man team from left to right. That's Lance Borges, Jane Garcia, who's now an IT journalist. That would be me, and without the shirt, because it was a half day. Regina Romana, who was a cinematographer and is now kind of like into alternative food, like native food. Magyar Tuasang, who's a graphic designer, recently deceased. So bands are among the most commonly known forms of communal art making communal groups, communal art making groups. You know, other kinds are like communal muralists or improvisational comedy groups. So it's not unknown at all. Like the communal making is very, very, very widespread. But when you get to art residencies, it's almost all exclusively directed towards individuals. Like art is commonly, when we talk about artists in high art or fine art context, the artist always tends to look like a painter or a writer, like an individual working in his garret, his attic, by himself, having ideas by himself. You know. But I like working. I mean, I worked like that also when I was when I am a media artist. But I recently formed another band called. This is like what one of the things that we did as Cathode Ray. You know, when Cathode Ray had shrunk to a duo. Hold up there. Can we turn up the sound? Turn up my sound though. Well, I don't know. So this is Cathode Ray. It's live cinema performance. I was doing this in Archaeos in like 2004. My only collaborator back then was Jane Garcia. He was like doing primarily all the sound on a laptop, and I was doing all the cinema and some of the sound on a desktop, which I would like carry around and then assemble in the venue. I was using Archaeos, and the images were made in, I forget what it's called. I used to call it, I make a joke and call it digital Barbie doll, because you get like, human figures and you can animate them. So, I do forget the name of the it's like, with the animation, I would like load a bunch of footage into the computer and just like, improvise with effects and like sequencing. It was live cinema, It's kind of like a dream of like an Asian man running through this dream of like giant blonde monster with him. So, that's still Cathode Ray after like another 8 years or so. Like another member joined us who had like quit in order to explore his love of drugs. and then this is the new band, SYNTHONYMS. So where I'm a trio with Marco Ortiga, Christina Lee, or short CD for short, and then me. This is like another band or another noise band, but it's an improvement or like a development over Cathode Ray, because we are also all studio artists. So we are and unlike, that was true of Cathode Ray. Three of us like have gone to filmmaking workshops. So we did like make little videos together, but our expertise all was like pretty much in one field. Here the members come from really quite radically different fields. So like Christina is a dancer. She draws. She does origami, so she likes to make art that's very geometrical. Marco is a kinetic sculptor, so he's the guy with the clean hands. He can like build stuff out of metal, and it's very, very clean build like that. like that. I don't make clean builds. I make very, very, very dirty builds. So everything looks like, has a bit of like bottom prototype look in my hands, which is, I guess I have to say, it's my style. It's just very stuff winds up looking after my hands have been at it. You know, but I also do so electronics and programming. So that's my contribution to the band, is that I do art electronics. And so aside from making music communally, we also make art communally. So like this is, and sort of like the rule of the band is nothing can be released communally under the band communal name of Sonatosonic unless it's been made at least by 2 members. So for instance, these are origami machines that is made by CD and Marco. So basically, Marco made the metal stuff, which are like cranks, and then the cranks like animate these origami sculptures by CD. So this was like, so it was kind of like a little Instagram ad for our show. This is like Rogue Reader, which was a collaboration between me and CD. She did like that painting on the floor, which I programmed a robot to follow it, equipped with accelerometers, so that as the robot moved and experienced like momentum and like G-forces in its body, the G-forces were sensed and then changed a synthesizer. So it would like, sing. It was called Rogue Reader because it was making a rogue reading of her painting, like giving it musical significance, you know. Contact improvisations, which is collaboration of drawing between CD and the robots that we programmed, was a 3-person collaboration between me, Marco, and CD. So CD was doing most of the drawing, Marco did a lot of the robot builds, and figured out like how to make brushes, ink brushes for the robots, and I programmed them to sort of like do the obstacle avoidance. Contact improvisations is a dance word. It's about a way of dance improvisation where usually people touch each other and then use the weight, push and pull of their bodies in order to make a dance, which is maybe inappropriate for this because it's probably better to call this no contact improvisations, because basically the robot's mandate was to avoid CD and draw. And so whenever you see this little triangle there, that's the robot saw something and decided, no, fuck that, and back away. So they create these patterns of avoidance, and CD makes these patterns of avoidance by drawing around the robots. Eventually, this created a communally drawn piece that was that big. It was like the biggest piece in the show that Sonatosonic had in art format. So this is a very, very fun way of working, where you have different disciplines which gives you different perspectives and also different ways to build on somebody's idea. Somebody says something and they say, yeah, that's right. And you know what, I can do this to it. Or maybe this is what I was looking for. Maybe we have this, blah, blah, blah. So you can see your idea sort of like morph and get reshaped in the hands and the mind of another person, which is very fun. And it takes a lot of pressure off, and it just becomes fun. Because I don't know if any of you feel this way, but when you're like a solo artist making it, I don't know, often there are times when it feels like play, but it also sometimes feels a bit fraught. It's like, is this really the right thing to do? There are so many other things that I could do. Everything, you have to make all the decisions alone. And it's sometimes fun, but there is also an element of pressure. And some of the song just remixes these like gradients of pressure so that at least I find it a lot more fun. So the trouble there is that, like I said, most residencies are aimed at individuals. And then we said, okay, well, fuck this. We're not going to get a residency for a trio, so let's make an independent residency. So basically, that's like, it came from the idea of independent film, where let's find our own funding, get our own residency. And yeah, so since it's like all communal making, this is going to be a communal talk with Marco. Joe, he hates that. Part of the communal thing is like division of labor, and I'm the one who gets to do all the talking. Who's assigned to do all the talking? Anyway, so we have a collector on the beach house, and he said, can my dance stay at your beach house for like a while? I said, yeah, sure, 2 weeks. And then, stay there, fed us very well. So this is, so just like hung out. And we were very concerned that, it's not just be a vacation, we didn't want to do that. So we really wanted to like make stuff that while we were there, or at least make stuff that we could build on afterwards. And this is like a bit of a documentation of the stuff that we wound up doing. I'll just play this and then I'll go into a little bit of the. Okay, so this is about various things that we did. So these are Aeolian harps, which we built and then like put on the beach. And that's the sound from the harps. These are like, they're basically wind buzzers. And that's the kind of sound they make. This is a light drawing. This is a kite that failed to fly. It was crushed by the wind. It was way too big. And it's like us just basically chilling under a tree at the beach. Like that. So, this is like, okay, so I'll explain a little bit about that light drawing thing. This is a collaboration between me and CD. So CD is danced, and then I wrote a program to process the video of her dancing so that it would retain the image of a green light, which we equipped her with this. So she has a little green flashlight, and she gets to draw in the air. So this is like, we figured out, and I worked out the technology of this ages ago. It's very simple, and we figured, make this would be like our thank you to our host, give him like a bunch of these light drawings. Marco had a, so this is like an example of like how synergy works. He had this entirely random idea to fly a kite at the beach just because he liked kites, and the beach was very, very windy. And then we thought, I actually tend to find a lot of things, because when I suspect that they may be having sound, because your teeth conduct sound to your ears through bone conduction. So when I felt the kite string vibrating, I just bit it, and then I was like, this vibration here, there's got to be a sound. So let's try to extract that sound. So that's why we tried sonifying the kites. Marco and I both made sensors, and we were both trying them out on the beach, and the results are promising. We're still planning to make something out of it. But the answer is yes, you can sonify a kite. So this is us testing out my idea on the beach. So that's one idea. The other was that, we got inspired back, because here you can see it's like just a kite walking a palengke. We just started looking at kite structures, and she found this kite, this tetrix kite. It's sort of like a Sierpinski fractal, but if a triangle gives birth to more triangles. These are like tetrahedrons, four-sided pyramids that give birth to more tetrahedrons, and so it grows geometrically. So you have a 4-cell one. Next possible tetrix is a 16-cell one. The next possible tetrix is a 64-cell one. So this is a 16-cell tetrix, which CD built out of straws and plastic. She brought the size. very, very stable. It's like that. It's hovering 8 feet above your head. Stays that way. It's conceivable to just let it fly there. It might even stay there overnight. Okay, it's possible. Anyway, so that was like the second thing that Marcos entirely London idea gave birth to. Because I think it was CD who took a picture of me biting the kite string, so I posted it because I thought it was funny looking, funny on Facebook, saying, talking about what we were doing, that I was going to try to sonify a kite. And as a result, friends reminded us that native kites are called gurion, and they already have, there's a technology for making them buzz in the air, and the buzzers are called sumpa. And we found a guy, using the word sumpa, we found surcharged TV blogs to have like a tutorial for making sumpa, which we followed religiously, creating these bows that were like with straws on them, making that buzzing sound. And then we planted a bunch of them on the beach to make a sound installation, so that's a third thing that was the idea of the kite. And then we thought, well, why not use them to sort of like wave around, because Marco started waving them around, like to make a kind of like something like kung fu and something like dance, a kind of like martial arts kind of dance, where the dancer would be using, would be making his own music, or at least contributing to the music. So like in the Brazilian capoeira. In capoeira, you have a drummer, and like some guys who are playing the berimbau, I think, while karatistas, some capoeiristas sort of like dance around. But here you could actually have guys doing kind of like arnis moves and then making sound while they're doing it, like that. So you're thinking about that. I was thinking, okay, I can wireless sonify this. There's something definitely here to be built with. And since CD is the choreographer, the dancer, you think, oh, well, why not? So Marco decides to play a kite. We find out how to build a Zumba. We figure out how the Zumba could become a dance. So it's sort of like births, it just sort of like flowers, but it can only flower communally. I would never, I would never have like decided to fly a kite on the beach, not my thing, and then, so it is sort of like the way, it's sort of like, the power of like multiples sort of like creates synergy, which is like a very, very brilliant word, where it talks about how multiple parties cooperating create a whole that's greater than some of its parts. And it's like a good thing about the communal creation. You may kapato ka and things bounce around and like improve themselves. And so that's like SYNTHONYMS. So we were performing at Apple, which is like another conference about AI, and they asked us to do a noise performance. Noise dance performance. They actually asked CD to dance, and she said, well, what if I bring my band? So she just dragged us in. The other benefit of like a communal noise that you actually triple the number of your contacts. Of course, all the photographs are about CD. It's like, shoot the girl in the high boots, fuck those guys with the laptops. That's fine. So that's sort of like communal making. And I want to remember that, although there were 3 of us at the beach, the Zumba thing was suggested by friends who had read my Facebook post. So we were interacting with the community online as well who made the suggestion. So that's just a point that I want to remember. Now this is sort of like, I want to finish that narrative a bit and then talk a little bit about Wasak, which was like, Joey probably had like showed you a lot of like stuff that Wasak was doing. This is like one of the early iterations. Where we were just doing shit in like these small clubs. I think this was in Green Papaya. But Kenga was able to, because of the internet, was able to like invite like Australian guys. This is Justice Abraham up there with with glass and the contact mic and blood on his face. He would do performances where he would like, just like this, contact mic on glass, he like squash his face against the glass and go, like that, making all these insane noises that sound like a half didgeridoo, half sponge monster, kind of thing, and eventually breaks it over his head, blood everywhere, which he seriously doesn't feel because he's so in the moment. So you get like international artists to come along, even though, basically a lot in the beginning, like, you just give them, he just like houses them at his house, and then Mahal, doesn't, they fly in, So it was like done on a total shoestring budget, totally independently, just like by talking to people and chikaing them on the internet. That's how we got like Sachiko M, who's like a Japanese electronic musician, with CDs out to just come visit and then, play at Wasak, things like that. And of course, this became success with success. So we got more from doing like not, having no budget of clubs. We started getting interest from international arts organizations. Goethe House, Goethe was looking for like interesting art things to fund, art initiatives to fund. Japan Foundation got into the act, some local companies as well. So we would have, the money grew and grew. And the sponsors grew and grew. But yeah, anyway, and there was like, and it drew from the community. So like, I was like, every time that Wasak was on, I was always like doing something for them. I would perform or be part of a workshop, be part of a symposium, things like that. In the beginning, all was good. But then I was very conscious about like, as more money comes in, you start to pay the artists more and more so that you turn it from something that's strictly free and like volunteer to something that starts to look professional. It's a gradient. Eventually, it was like the last one, so there was like a ton of shit you saw. Joee's videos and photographs were just so much more explicit than this. But there were like residencies, talks, there were workshops, concerts, special programs. So like, I made a score that would be an interactive score that would be played by COLLABoratory, the Composers League of the Philippines, that's based in UP. So everybody bring your laptops and we'll play to this score, this 10-minute visual score. So tons of really, really, really groundbreaking projects in this Philippine context. And then in 2019, the 10th year, from what Tengal wants to count, but I think that they were like, earlier, like little one-offs that he was doing, that he just decided not to count, because that's not the real Wasak yet. So the real Wasak was about 10 years. Tengal confessed that he had been always, that this had been grant-driven, and none of us really knew what was going on. But he was the one who was like, talking to Goethe, talking to Japan Foundation, getting the grants, having to make the budget, balance the budget. Eventually he started delegating this stuff, but at the end of it, the budget had always like been running to the ground, and it was always like, okay, now how to write staff pricing proposals for the next budget. So it was kind of brilliant, but very exhausting, not only for the staff, which turned out as, ran into the ground because he expected them to work as hard as he did, but for everybody. And eventually he just felt he was just getting too old and tired, and you get nothing at the end of it, And he left, and he's now in Berlin. We're still talking, pero there's no charismatic guy with connections to Sonic, Goethe, Japan Foundation now anymore. So there was this organizer with a lot of connections who suddenly disappeared. And now the scene is sort of like died. There's like a bunch of the stuff that we were doing, so tons of shit. So these are like this thing, because I've been part of like a bunch of scenes before, and parts of multiple communities. Experimental film, experimental video, media art, sound art now, and now I've been seeing a bunch of similar things sort of happen. I've just been putting my thoughts into words, and so this is like the second part of the talk where I talk a little bit about I want to talk in public with almost no pictures about like the thoughts I had about this, and maybe, you know, some parallels drawn between like communal making and, you know, community, or making in a community. So there's like 3 phases to like these movements I was thinking. There's one where there's practitioners do show and tell, sort of like what you're doing in like the last SYNTHICIDE, which I think Nono was like saying, no, SYNTHICIDE is performance, synth was just that. It's like where the practitioners basically show their stuff to each other. So in the early days of mobile fund, that was not it also. Parang you make your films, and then parang yung mga taga-mobile fund lang din yung nandun. Already okay yung ginawa mo, man. Like that. So it's just basically filmmakers telling other filmmakers they like their films. So like, yung galing ni Rox, Rox is a legend. 12 lang kayo, isa yung legends. It's like that. It's that small scene, and that limited the community. Then there's phase 2, where you get kind of like fans who are non-practitioners, but they're just fans of what you're making. And I think that is sort of like the stage at which SYNTHICIDE is now, where people who are not necessarily modular or synth geeks come and like, you know, see. And that was also the, was passed through that phase, you know, like that. And I think that no real experimental art form has outgrown this phase, because it's not exclusive. You know, it's sort of like a gradient again. And this is a bit of a, there's stuff there, like for instance in experimental film, in video art, there are people like Maria Taniguchi or Poklo Nagatin who actually can sell video works. But for the most part, it's still just like you show your stuff for free kind of thing, or with very minimal tickets to fans. Phase 3 would be the actual commercial phase, where you actually have markets and like tours, and you know, where actually there's actually money, there's a big enough audience of basically people who don't know each other, you know, an anonymous audience can actually give you their money. Or actually not even anonymous. It's like if you have like a big enough cult fan base, then you can actually survive as well. So there's a commercial phase, that's the 3rd one. And I don't think that any of those scenes have actually become a full-on commercial phase. You know? But that would be the 3rd. So I'm thinking we should start thinking about maybe a concept called scene ecology. Like, what is it that builds a scene, and what are the parts of what parts would help make it better? And could you imagine yourself playing the part? Because usually right now, most people either want to make the stuff, or they want to like help make the stuff, or they want to watch the stuff. You know, but there's, kumbaga, in a forest, there's like, you know, mushrooms like digesting shit in the ground, and then, you know, trees, and then there's like the midlife grasses. There's an ecology. There's a lot of like people who like make the scene, and to make the scene grow, maybe we can start thinking about like, what does it need? What does it need, and you know, where can we find is this person suited to this need? So like, so I'm thinking like, there are like makers and performance. There would be like support specialists. So like, one of our support specialists would be Rambo back there. He's a performer, but he also like, you know, people go to him to repair their stuff, or to build stuff, or okay, can you make this, blah, blah, blah. So, because not everybody who's like in the noise scene can make stuff or repair stuff that they bought and it's broken. So You need like, support specialists, Martin, Randall, another one. For any scene to like grow also, there should be like writers, and which should include historians and theorists. And I was thinking about this even before in like Mall Fund, because like a lot of the filmmakers like just make stuff, show it, and then a lot of the old dialogues, really, really shallow. Like, okay, ginawa mo, Ross, pero mas okay yung ginawa mo nung isang beses. And then that's it, that's the extent of the dialogue. So it really requires, I think it would have been nice to sort of like talk about why is this one better, or the weak part of this is this, or why, I think that this film is different because it's like relying mostly on leveraging graphic looks rather than like, for this one has better sound and things like that. So the people who like put these thoughts onto paper sort of like elevate the art by sort of like refining the appreciation of the level of discourse or the level of appreciation of an art. It requires real spaces like this where people can talk, and then concerts, like that. And then virtual spaces like websites and magazines where, again, the community sort of like gets to see itself and meet itself and share its thoughts. So this happened even like when, the internet was jingle, and you have like this little page where people would write in from Cavite. It's like, kami yung mga tribe acts from Cavite. Hello sa inyong lahat, like that. Now it's much more developed, but it's still kind of underdeveloped. I don't think that there's like, for instance, really a website for the modular guys, or even for film. The level of discourse and the websites do not exist. And nobody, I think very, very few people think, you know what? I could be the historian of sound. I could be the historian for harsh noise, and then be the guy who does that. It's like for writing cultures, like in Japan and Indonesia, this is like a role that could occur to somebody. But here it never occurs to people, almost it seems. And so we need to like figure out how to grow this element of the ecology, because it's very, very primitive. And then others, there would be organizers, and then maybe look for your foreign counterpart. Is there a scene like this in Indonesia? Answer is yes, actually. In Hong Kong, Korea, actually there are like scenes like the noise scene in like Middle Eastern countries as well, and North Africa, Egypt, And then organizers. And of the organizers, I'm thinking, they should think in terms of community. This is something that I'm thinking, but even Tengao was thinking. When he was leaving, prior to leaving to Berlin, he was talking about like regrets, because it was like saying that after 10 years of WhatsApp, what is there? There's like, maybe a bunch of photographs, but it could really stand to be a book, like every one of them. Who did you invite? What happened there? What got learned? What workshops were done? Or what mistakes were made? All these like the minutiae of like how the festivals were organized. That was coded in kind of like an institutional memory. Everybody who was like working on it knew how to do it. And then once it's gone, the next festival guys have to like start stumbling over themselves and making the same mistakes over, because there's no transfer of information. There's no mistakes that can be avoided. They have to be made over and over again. So I was thinking that Tengao, first, nobody thought about this. I mean, I didn't think about this. I never mentioned this to Tengao, even when it was like when we were like doing it. But they should be like it should have been like nurturing somebody to take over the reins, or at least looking out for somebody to take over the reins. And then he's meeting with Goethe, Japan Foundation, bring them along so that they are like making the same contacts, can talk to them, Even if you haven't left for Berlin, they could be like, you know what, I have nothing to do, you go to the meeting, they can talk to them. And then they're like perfectly willing to talk to you because they know you. That kind of thing. So, syempre there's the risk of creating a rival. But if you have an argument with your assistant and then he takes off and makes, not a rival new media, that's a risk. But I think it's right. It's with unless you court that risk, you are courting the ending of a revolution as a pocket revolution, like what used to happen, what happened in the Philippines before the final Philippine Revolution. There were like all these little uprisings in the provinces that didn't know about each other, and which were relatively easy to put down because they had no allies. So you have to think about how to preserve institutional memory, how to pass on institutional memory, how to replace people with offices, because the WhatsApp, it's clear now, was personality driven. It relied on Bengal, this one guy. So what's necessary, I think, is we start to think of terms of sustainability, delegate and train, and transform the scene from being personal, insofar as you can, because you can't transmit charisma. But to substitute, where it's possible, personality-based thing with an institutional-based thing. And I wanted to talk about this specifically in 1980, because 1980 is one of the ones who seems to have managed to execute this. This was first run entirely by Mayumi and Mark Salvatos, and now it's being run by Frankie and Kathy. Yeah, like that. So there was actually a changing of the guard, which they managed to negotiate. So actually, they should talk about that, how that happened, because that's very interesting to me. It didn't happen in any of the scenes that in most of the scenes that I've been in. Scene ecology. So this is one of the other, this is Zap. This was like a magazine in the American counterculture 60s, and it was like a guy imagining a role for himself that did not exist. I will be the comic book guy of the hippies. And he made this comic book, and then he published it, and now it's like the original Zap goes for thousands of dollars or something. There is when I was in the sound scene, in alternative sound scene in the 1990s, this was being put together, a fanzine that was being given for free at the bar. It was made entirely on Xerox machines that the guys would make a mock-up, pass it to their friends, and they would surreptitiously use their office copies machines to copy this stuff and make this magazine and pass it out for free. This was pre-desktop publishing. So with the aid of a lot of shabu, they would type shit out and justify it by hand with paste and scissors. That's how they laid this shit out. And apparently there is a scene for harsh noise in Indonesia called Your Setup, and they're interviewing a Filipino artist, Gentiles, in Marco, like that. So this is fragments of an ecology, which is, we have a lot of makers here, but a lot of the other parts of the ecology are missing. We should think about that, have a dialogue about that. This is my reflections on the community. Thank you very much.